Bienvenue. Les aventures de Frank et Ben. Quatrième série. Frank and Ben go to a pool party at Genevieve's place. Cinquième histoire. Frank and Ben go to a pool party. Part 5. Anxious to dispel the hard feelings that are starting to develop between the boys over Frank's changing his mind about some plans they had for the summer, Genevieve urges them to forget their differences and think about nothing more than having a good time at her place. Then she invites them into the next room, which, as she tells them, has been recently renovated and turned into a well-equipped gym. No sooner do they take a look at all the sophisticated exercise machines in this room than they want nothing more than to try out each and every one. After first getting on the treadmill and the elliptical machine and burning up a good deal of energy, they try out the stair climber, the rowing machine, the stationary bike, and the cross-country ski machine. For about 10 minutes they lift and pull and pump and sweat and take such an interest in learning how to use these machines that Genevieve often has to help them by giving instructions and even little demonstrations. There comes a time, however, she decides to remind them about the other guests. Before we go upstairs to meet them, it might not hurt to give you an idea of what they're like. Let me start with Greg Donahue, who, when I interrupted my tennis game to come into the house to greet you, was sitting with Minot by the pool. Greg is someone Minot went out with before she got involved with that lying, scheming, underhanded professor who, with his flattering words and smooth talk, I'm not even going to mention his ice blue eyes, square chin, athletic body, and Fellini wardrobe, stole her heart and then broke it. A few more words are said about this professor before Genevieve suddenly breaks off from denouncing him to say something about Greg. He's kind, intelligent, sensitive, warm-hearted, understanding, open-minded, and down-to-earth. I know you'll like him as much as I do. However, there's one thing I should mention before you meet him. He suffers from a strange affliction that causes him to emit. I can only describe it this way to give you an idea of how strange it is. Bird-like chirps and whooping sounds. After answering a few questions from the boys about this strange affliction and counseling them to ignore it as much as possible, Genevieve then goes on to tell them about another guest. Big Bob Slummix is a friend of mine from high school. He's the funniest and most amusing person I've ever met in my life. After the boys express their desire to meet Big Bob, Genevieve says, I know you'll like him as much as I do. However, there's one thing I should mention. People who don't know Bob are often fooled into thinking his sarcasms and cutting remarks are meant to be taken seriously. After the boys have asked Genevieve a few questions about this and are confident they're not among those who'd make the mistake of taking Bob's sarcasms and cutting remarks seriously, she goes on to tell them about the Dewey sisters, who live next door and are regular users of the pool. They're twins about the same age as you are. They're quite attractive, but difficult to tell apart because they always wear identical clothes, glasses, makeup, ribbons, jewelry, bathing suits, and braces. They also have the habit of talking excitedly and at length on any subject. However, I'm sure you'll get along with them because despite these particular traits that can be unnerving and even confusing at times, they're full of life and have a healthy interest in sports and many other activities.